Hi everyone, this is Jim. Welcome to this Blitz chess postmortem, a postmortem of my Blitz game number 479. I had the white pieces and played d4. My opponent played d5, and after c4 we get a Queen's Gambit declined, e6. Very classical way to play against the Queen's Gambit. I go knight c3, the main move, attacking the center, and he defends it with knight f6. And now I played the move bishop g5. This is a move. I normally play knight f3 in this position, which you see is the main move there. But this is a move I've been experimenting with, putting the bishop out there and getting it outside the pawn chain. So the advantage is the bishop maybe is active over here. Maybe it trades itself for the knight. The disadvantage is that it's possibly being drawn away from the queen side where there might be some activity. Black often expands in the queen side in this opening. So we'll see there's some pros and cons. Anyway, my opponent plays bishop e7, go knight f3, normal developing moves. And now the usual plan for black is to push on with h6 and castle, either one of those. A lot of times with the idea of later playing a knight to e4 and trading off this dark squared bishop. But my opponent plays c6, and we've actually gone into the semi-Slav at this point. So slightly different opening than the Queen's Gambit declined, but well, close enough. I played the semi-Slav many times as black as well, so reasonable way to play. He goes for this typical idea of gaining a tempo on the bishop and then kicking it with b5. You'll see in this position that's not the most common way to play. Right here, castling is more common, and right here, knight to d5 is more common, going after the dark squared bishop. But this is still a reasonable way to play. You see it keeps... white has the usual kind of opening advantage, but nothing terrible is going on. Now a6 is the usual follow-up, but you can see bishop b7 is a fine move as well. So we're out of the opening book, but no big mistakes have been committed. It's an interesting position where black has a lot more space on the queen side, and his idea is to get in this thematic push c5 and open things up for the bishops, and he should have a pretty good game. I go ahead and castle here. Plays a6, holding up his pawns, and I play a4, undermining them. So a4 is a mistake. I should probably just continue with normal developing moves like rook to c1, queen to e2, or maybe even the exchange. The chess engine is indicating might be a time to trade off that bishop. I usually wait. If I'm going to trade off this bishop, I'll wait until he provokes a trade with the move h6, just to induce a weakness there. So those would be normal moves. a4 is interesting, but he has a good reply in b4. A lot of times b4 is a move that black plays anyway. Gains a tempo on the knight, and he can shore up that pawn with a5. I thought I would get some play against the backward c pawn, but as we can see in the game, he's able to dissolve that weakness pretty quickly. I could play knight e4. That's one of the chess recommendations, but I went back to e2, trying to keep more material on. He plays a5, defending his pawn. Bring my rook over here to take a look at his c-pawn. He defends, and now I go knight g3. Just trying to organize my pieces on the king side here, and right away pushes on with c5. So basically black equalizes with this line, so I've given up whatever opening advantage I might have had. So after this exchange, however, he should castle first. Let's see. In fact, it doesn't like the exchange. It thinks I should trade off the bishop for the knight. That's a good point. He probably wants to keep this knight here defending the pawn, so when I take with the bishop, he'll have to take back with the bishop, and you can argue the bishop is not well placed on f6. So that's best play. Okay, after here, he can castle and then round up this pawn at leisure. He actually makes a mistake, so I make a mistake, and he follows up with another mistake, which would allow me to play bishop b5 check, which I didn't play, but this is pretty interesting. I thought it wouldn't be a big deal because he could just block this check. But it turns out there's no good way to block it, and the engine is recommending king f8, which, if he plays king f8, I would be happy with that position. So I've got an active post for my bishop. It's defending the a-pawn, which is loose, and in the game I end up losing that pawn. So this would be good. Notice that if he blocks with the bishop, he trades queens. No, it's my turn. He blocks with the bishop. I trade queens. And he has to take back with the king. The rook is busy defending the bishop, so he has to take back with the king. So he would lose his castling privileges in that line. And if he tries to block with the knight, I can trade bishop for knight, taking advantage of this pin, so he has to take back with the bishop, and then invade with the queen and stop him from castling. Let's see, can't he just play bishop e7, queen d2? Well, this still keeps quite a good advantage for white. I guess this pin on the knight is uncomfortable. So these are ways for white to get an advantage. I just dropped back with the bishop, and now, so I've gone from winning to losing, or from an advantage to a disadvantage. But this is pretty severe. Actually, it's probably good winning chances for black right now. He trades queens, which is the right idea, and now this a-pawn is just undefended, and bishop c2 is not a very appealing move, so I don't really have a great way to defend it. Let's see, he castled here, which is the recommended move. Yeah, bishop c2 isn't even on the engine's list of candidate moves here. Is there something immediately wrong with bishop c2? You can play b3 and kick the bishop right away. Yeah, okay. So there's no good way to defend that pawn. Anyway, I played knight d4. And cancel that. Did he take? No, he played h6, kicking my queen. I traded. Kicking my bishop, I traded, and then I played rook c2. Right there, I could have tried bishop c2 again, I guess, but he still has that reply b3, I think. Anyway, now he grabs the pawn, so he's a pawn up, and his pieces are pretty active here. My pieces seem a bit uncoordinated. I try to line up on the c file, try and get some activity there, but this allows him to trade. He could take this knight off and create another weakness on the d4 square and have another target there, so that's best play. What he plays, rook fd8, allows me to trade rooks, and this helps my situation quite a bit. I take off one pair of rooks, and the engine is even indicating he should take back with the bishop to avoid more trades, but he took back with the rook, and so I've got back into the game. Well, the advantage is dropped, and I can fight on here. I go after the pawns with knight c6. He was already attacking on b2, so this is just a trade. So he stays a pawn up, and probably a winning advantage here. Let's see, he goes bishop a6, which kind of restricts my king. Not a bad move. I play f3, so as my king has a route. Oh, cancel that. I played knight e4 first, hitting his bishop. Bishop went to e7. Then I played f3, giving my king a route out of the corner here, so I can come over and help round up this pawn possibly. And right here he makes the mistake that really gives away his advantage. So up until this point he had a winning edge, and there's lots of moves that maintain it. Let's see, bishop b5, king to f8, just bring his king into the game, knight to d1. Knight to d1 is pretty interesting. It hits this pawn, and that's not easy for me to defend. I don't see a way to even hold on to that pawn. So he has a lot of good moves here, but bishop d3 is just a bad one. So it's bad in principle. He has the bishop pair, and he's giving up the bishop pair. So that's the principle that that applies here. That's bad. But it's bad also for a very specific reason, which is he's got a pawn. I mean, one of the powers of the bishop pair is that they control all the squares the pawn can go through. And after the trade of the light-squared bishops, this pawn can never get through the square b3 because his remaining bishop is a dark squared bishop. And so I can put two pieces on that square, and he can only get one piece on it. So big mistake. Okay, king f1, he plays f5, knight drops back, knight to c5, and I just keep bringing my king in. I'm going to try and bring my king over to round up that pawn. Bishop to d8, hitting my knight, but now I can blockade this pawn. And he decides to trade. There's probably nothing better. And I should be able to hold a draw here. It's still a 1 point in favor of black because he has the extra pawn. But the chess engine doesn't see any way of promoting that pawn, or else this evaluation would keep going up. But, well, I do have to be a little bit careful. We'll show in a few moments there's some interesting ways for black to still play for an advantage. He plays e5, yeah, so this is the moment. After e5, finally my king can come in here and round up the pawn and everything is okay. He could keep some chances alive for winning. Let's see, bishop to c7, and say I play king c4 trying to round up the pawn, and then bishop to d6, hitting the pawns over here. And if I make the mistake of playing h3, then his king can start coming forward. And now, let's say knight d4. I'm still going to try and round up this pawn. g6. And knight back to c2, hitting the pawn. See, already the evaluation is going up. So I can't play knight c2 and round up that pawn. I need to go knight c6. Let's see if this... No, that's not holding either. See how the evaluation starts going up? So what's a move that would save things here? Maybe knight back to e2, holding on to these dark squares and preventing his king from invading. So the winning idea here, so this probably still draws. The winning idea here is if I play a move like knight c2 and try and round up this pawn, this king can start charging in to these dark squares, and now taking is actually a losing move here, because my king is left out of play and his king is coming in to invade. So that's how black should try and play for a win. But I think with best play I could still probably hold that. But e5 lets me invade immediately, or come over here immediately and win this pawn, and my king stays close enough to the action to to hold the draw. Okay, so he goes bishop e7, and I go knight a5. I'm just shuffling my knight around to where I can attack this pawn. He goes king e6, knight here. His king is not close enough to keep my knight from that square. Bishop d6. Notice bishop d6 now doesn't come with a tempo because he's blocked. He's blocked the bishop by that pawn, so that's why one of the reasons why e5 was a bad move. And now I can just take this guy off. He takes and steps forward with his king. This is the best he can do, but my king comes back in time to stop him. So now I've got a blockade on these squares. He can't penetrate, and this is a draw. Even though his king is slightly better than mine, it's a little more advanced. He goes with g5. I go king d3. He goes with h5. I go e4 check, and this exchange is okay. He goes king d6. But right here is actually I make a losing move. I mentioned this in the description of the previous video. That see if you could spot the blunder by white. Here is the blunder. It's the move g3. And if you want some time to think about it, maybe you can figure out how that's a blunder. Okay, I'm going to give the answer away. I played g3, and now he has two moves that he needs to play in the right order. He needs to come in with the king first, king c5, and try and invade. So I move my king over to blockade. And then he has a tempo move, g4. So that's what the problem with the move g3 was. It gave him a tempo move right in this position. And now I have to move my king. I have no good moves with the pawns. And as I move my king to either side, if I go to the other side, his king invades directly. But now his king comes in this way. And is a typical flanking maneuver. And this is just a winning king and pawn endgame for black. So pretty interesting at g3. So there are a number of moves I have here instead of g3 that draw. Any king move draws. Or not any king move, but lots of king moves draw. King c4 is a good move. You know, stepping forward. And after this, even now I can play g6 because g4, it's my turn to move, but I can. He can't really invade here. My king is far forward enough that the pawn is covering this square and there's no way for him to invade. So that would have been a simple draw, just stepping forward with the king instead of playing g3. A more complicated way to draw, but kind of interesting, is a move g4, because he kind of has to take the pawn. If he doesn't take it, I will take. I will use this pawn to distract his king and then win the e-pawn here and win the game. So he has to take, and now these are completely stopped, and it's my turn to move. I go here, and he has to stop my king. Notice that if he tries to waste a tempo with a move like this ends up losing. I can take back, and let's say now he tries to block with the king. I can push on with g4. If he pushes on with g4, then I can bring my king around, and now I have the outside position with my king, and I have a winning king and pawn endgame. So interesting ways to draw this game. But g3 is a way to lose. Fortunately for me, he played g4 immediately, and then after this there's nothing left to do but shuffle our kings. So we agreed to a draw in this position. So pretty interesting game and an interesting instructive moment in the endgame there. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Leave any comments you have in the section below, and I will see you again soon. Bye.